My best friend chose to be child-free her whole life, but at 60, she envied me for having both a son and a daughter. She wanted my son to take care of her in her old age, but after he refused, she blamed me for everything. She completely forgot the happiness of being child-free in her youth. She accused me, "If you hadn't supported my child-free choice back then, I would surely have both a son and a daughter now." Her resentment towards me grew heavier. And after being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, she became so deranged that she dragged me into jumping into the river together. When I opened my eyes again, we had returned to our 25-year-old selves, and this time she abandoned her child-free mindset. She wanted to have 5 children. The icy river water enveloped me from all directions. The suffocating sensation gradually made me lose consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself surrounded by the scenery of the dormitory I lived in during my youth. I froze as I stared at the mirror across from me. In the mirror, my complexion was rosy, a far cry from the aged appearance I would have 35 years later. I had actually been reborn. Tears flowed uncontrollably. Thank goodness I haven't developed cervical spondylosis from endless laundry and chores. Nor have I gone gray from the sleepless nights of childcare. Suddenly, I thought of Megan, who tried to pull me into the river, and I abruptly turned to look at the opposite bed. I found her staring blankly at her reflection in the mirror. Just like me, in my previous life, at the age of 25, Megan and I embarked on 2 completely different life paths. Following my family's arrangements, I married Jim, whom I met through a blind date, and had 2 children within 3 years. Meanwhile, Megan pursued a relationship freely and met a boyfriend who had returned from abroad. Both being progressive thinkers, they hit it off immediately and decided against having children, embracing a dink lifestyle. After marriage, my contact with Megan gradually decreased. While I was at home taking care of the child day and night, she traveled around the world with her husband. When I was arguing endlessly with my mother-in-law over the child, she adopted 2 cats and a dog. Living a relaxed and comfortable life, 20 years passed like this. I finally breathed a sigh of relief after putting both my son and daughter through college. Yet because of all these years of hard work, I look several years older than my peers. As for Megan, apart from some traces left by time at the corners of her eyes, she still looks almost the same as she did in her youth. When I ran into her at the market, I almost didn't recognize her. Megan's husband passed away due to illness, and after his death, she returned alone to her hometown. After meeting me, she moved next door to my house, saying she wanted some company. Later, all my children graduated from college. My son turned out to be useless and came back to live off me. My daughter rebelled and insisted on marrying a small-time gangster. Every time they come home, it's complete chaos. But in Megan's eyes, all this turns into domestic bliss. She often sighs and says to me, "I'm so envious that you have both a son and a daughter, and your home is so lively, unlike me, all alone." Every time this happens, I would advise her to think about the joys of her younger days, but my persuasion was useless to her. Her desire for a child only grew stronger. She even set her sights on my son, hoping he would take care of her in her old age and see her off. My son doesn't even want to take care of me. How could he possibly take care of her, after being rejected? She coincidentally got diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. In the end, she actually blamed everything on me, hysterically dragging me into the river with her. "Sarah, this time I won't repeat the same mistakes. Just you wait, I'll have both a son and a daughter." Enjoying the happiness of family, Megan stood before me with her hands on her hips. I felt a bit envious. No wonder she seemed so youthful in spirit, having never given birth, having lived for 60 years. She can still act like a young girl. Seeing me dazed, Megan frowned and nudged me. "Don't think just because you had a happy past life, you're better than me. In this life, I'm going to have 5 kids. Just you wait and envy me." Her mention of 5 kids shocked me. Having babies isn't like a sow giving birth to a whole litter at once. Besides, raising 2 kids nearly exhausted me to death in my past life. But I didn't discourage her ambitious aspirations. I chuckled. "Didn't you know? Having children isn't just about the woman's body, it also depends on the man's health. Are you sure your husband from your past life was in good shape?" Megan froze. She truly hadn't considered this point. In her previous life, her husband had gotten a vasectomy right after marriage, making it impossible to test his fertility. I feigned regret and sighed. "Seems like your dream of 5 kids won't come true." "Jim's body is much better. If I hadn't been wearing an IUD in our past life, we could have kept having more. How about I have 5 kids this time around?" Megan glared at me with an unpleasant expression. Coincidentally, my phone rang just then. On the other end of the line was my aunt's voice, cheerfully telling me she wanted to introduce me to a good man. I sneered inwardly. In my previous life, I didn't realize until after marrying Jim that everything my aunt had said was a lie. My cousin from my aunt's family got arrested for fighting. And Jim's dad happened to work in the police station cafeteria. My aunt asked him to deliver food to my cousin and put in a good word so he wouldn't suffer too much inside. After my cousin was released, she treated me as a favor to repay Jim's family. On the phone, my aunt kept talking, and I deliberately responded loudly, "Sure, let's meet then. I know his name is Jim, let me jot down his number." After hanging up the phone, Megan was still staring at me. I threw the paper with Jim's phone number on the table and said to Megan, "From now on, we'll go our separate ways. I'm going to ask the manager to change dorms right now." After negotiating with the manager, I went straight back to pack my things. Megan had already disappeared, and along with her, the paper with Jim's phone number on the table was gone too. Megan and I were classmates, and after graduating from vocational college, we both ended up working at this electronics factory. In this era, technology wasn't that advanced yet, and all those fancy professions hadn't really made their way here. The job at the electronics factory wasn't too bad. After moving into the dormitory in the afternoon, I didn't expect the manager to come looking for me again. He asked me if I had a conflict with Megan, saying Megan approached him in the afternoon wanting to resign. I shook my head and said I wasn't sure. So the manager didn't press further. In my past life, Megan hadn't worked for years, relying entirely on her husband's support. Now that I've been reborn, expecting someone who's been pampered for so long to do manual labor, she definitely couldn't handle it. Oh, by the way, Sarah, be careful with your work recently. A few representatives from our partner companies will be visiting the factory. Tell the people below to put on their best behavior during work hours. If they mess up the factory's collaboration projects, they won't be able to stay. As I turned to leave, the manager pulled me aside and whispered this reminder. I nodded, but my thoughts had already drifted far away. The inspection team, I remember, this happened in my previous life too. I remember it so clearly because, in my previous life, the person the manager instructed was Megan. Yet not only did she not tell us, she even feigned illness to have our entire team take leave for her and accompany her to the hospital, while we all left together. Busy arranging transportation and contacting hospitals for her, she quietly slipped back to the workshop unnoticed. That time, because of her actions, our entire team was fired, except for her. We explained our reasons, but the factory wouldn't accept them. Without a job or income, and with my family pressuring me urgently, I had no choice but to hastily arrange a blind date and rush into marriage. During this inspection, her diligence caught the manager's attention, and she was recommended for promotion, transitioning from a worker to a white-collar employee responsible for liaising with the inspection project team. At the same time, she met her husband, who had just returned from studying abroad. Our lives were forever split into two diverging paths. We did consider that Megan might have orchestrated this, but when she threw herself at our feet crying with snot and tears streaming down her face, we all believed her. Just a coincidence, just our bad luck. This time, Megan resigned, and she couldn't be bothered to play mind games with us anymore. I was really curious to see if we'd still be so unlucky. Ladies from Group 1, gather around. The manager said there'll be inspections from higher up soon. Let's stay sharp and follow the procedures. I entered the workshop, called all the team members over, and went through the precautions one by one. Everyone nodded in understanding. In the blink of an eye, the day of the inspection arrived. The moment the examination hall group leader stepped in, I happened to be walking past them holding a data sheet. "Hey, comrade, what are you looking at there?" Sure enough, that leader stopped me, pretending not to know who they were. I sternly told them to leave. "This is the operation workshop. Unauthorized personnel must leave, or I'll call security." Our manager squeezed through the crowd from behind, smiling apologetically at the executive. "Sorry, President David. The young girl doesn't know better. Please don't be angry." The man addressed as President David wasn't angry at all. Instead, he pointed at me and laughed. "Manager Wilson, this young colleague is quite good, very responsible at her job. Actually, we happen to need a professional guide for our inspection. Why not ask her to explain the workshop operations?" Of course, Sarah, come here and lead President David's group. Make sure to explain everything well." Quickly handing the data to other team members, I took a deep breath and gestured to guide the inspection team. "All right, next, I'll be the one to explain to everyone." During the process, Director David raised many professional questions, all of which I explained clearly and concisely. with decades of work experience, I could answer those questions even in my sleep. Judging by the smile on Director David's face and Manager Wilson's constant nods, my performance was excellent, not bad. What's this young comrade's name, so young yet very professional? Will she also be responsible for the follow-up coordination work? Yes, Sarah will also be involved in the follow-up coordination work, rest assured, Director David. As I left the workshop with the group, a gentle breeze brushed past the corners of my mouth, lifting them unconsciously into a smile. It's truly wonderful. This time, the one who seized the opportunity was me. Whoever wants to get married can go ahead, I'm here to make money. After that, I threw myself into busy work and studies. I was very familiar with the workshop tasks, but some of the office work felt a bit unfamiliar. To bridge the gap with my colleagues, I followed up on project progress with the team during the day and spent evenings researching, reviewing past project files, and expanding my knowledge base. I can't just participate in this project once, I want to stay and climb step by step. When I was extremely busy, my aunt called, "Sarah, have you met that young man Jim yet?" I tilted my head to hold the phone while my hands continued typing project documents. "Not yet, the factory's been busy lately, haven't had time to meet." "Wait, what are you busy with? You're just twisting screws on the assembly line. What's there to be busy about? You're 25 already, an old maid with low education and a mediocre job. If you don't seize the chance to marry and have kids soon, what will you do when you're old?" At least Jim's family has stable government jobs, plenty of girls are lining up to marry him. If you miss this chance, you won't get another. "No, Auntie, I really can't get away right now, gotta go, my boss is coming." I quickly hung up the phone and let out a long sigh at the computer screen. With someone like Jim, a bunch of girls would be rushing to marry him. What's the appeal? His old age, lack of honesty, monthly salary of $3,000. Or not washing his feet. Less than a month after marriage, I was pressured to have a child, and during the preparation for pregnancy, I wasn't allowed to work. Being pregnant with no one to care for me was bad enough, but I also had to prepare meals morning and night for my parents-in-law. After giving birth to a daughter, the whole family looked down on me, sneering that I was a hen that couldn't lay eggs. Before even finishing my postpartum confinement, Jim pressured me to have another child. Just thinking about each and every one of these things makes my heart race. If I hadn't been driven to desperation in my past life, I would never have married someone like him. I wonder if Megan will fall in love with this man who could give her both a son and a daughter. "Sarah, long time no see, why do you look so worn out?" After pulling 3 consecutive all-nighters, I stood in the fast food restaurant with massive dark circles under my eyes, ordering food. When I saw Megan strutting over with her nose in the air, behind her was Jim, the man who had tormented me for a lifetime in my previous existence. It seemed they had already taken a liking to each other. To be fair, Megan was a pretty girl, her eyes curved into crescents when she smiled, and she had dimples, making her the epitome of sweetness. Because of her looks, people always feel particularly sympathetic towards her. It's no surprise that Jim fell for her, especially with my sloppy appearance as a contrast. Jim's eyes lit up even more when looking at Megan. "Let me introduce you, this is my former colleague, Sarah, and this is my boyfriend, Jim." Megan wrapped her arms around Jim's and coquettishly said. Her tone was unmistakably smug. I watched as Jim, all dressed up, hugged Megan back, grinning from ear to ear with that utterly shameless look, and rubbed my eyes, blind, utterly blind, but in Megan's eyes, my demeanor was interpreted as despondency over losing Jim. "Jim, why don't you go buy us some coffee? Sarah and I need to chat." Megan nudged Jim, who frowned briefly, so fleeting that, had I not been married to him for decades and known his true nature, I might have missed it entirely. Jim is an incredibly stingy person. He's someone who would scold me all night long just because I spent 50 cents more on groceries, yet now, to win Megan over, he's willing to spend dozens of dollars on a drink he wouldn't even touch. Watching Megan's sparkling eyes, Jim hesitated for a moment but ultimately forced a smile and walked out of the fast food restaurant. "How have you been lately?" "Still tightening screws on the assembly line. Look at those dark circles. Is the factory work that heavy? Do they at least pay you a few $100 more?" Megan pulled a tissue from her bag, wiped away non-existent dust from the chair, and gracefully sat down, with her hands adorned in red nail polish propping up her face. She looked utterly innocent. In her past life, her husband must have treated her very well, even though she was decades old when combining both lifetimes. Adopting this girlish demeanor didn't seem out of place at all. "Not bad, same as usual." I squeezed the meal ticket in my hand and replied perfunctorily, yet Megan acted as if she couldn't see it, relentlessly telling me how wonderful her life had been since meeting Jim. I lowered my eyes and finally decided to say one more thing to her. Megan, why did you have to choose him? You know, he and I, Sarah, didn't you wrong me in your past life? Isn't it only fair that I claim it back in this one? You have both a son and daughter. Yet you insist on leaving me all alone. How could you be so heartless? Megan's eyes widened as she stared at me, cutting off my words as if anything more I said would be some unforgivable sin against her. But in their previous life, it was their own decision as a couple to be child-free. I didn't force them. Whatever, it's none of my business anymore. We won't have any contact from now on anyway. Don't even think about stealing Jim away, stealing my happiness, I'm telling you. I won't let you succeed. Understood, comprehended, respected, blessed, locked in tight. When the project ended, I was called into Manager Wilson's office. Unlike my previous life, I wasn't assigned to work in the factory office but was transferred to the headquarters instead. Sarah, you've really hit the jackpot. President David is very satisfied with this collaboration project and recommended you to the CEO of headquarters. You're skyrocketing. I smiled bashfully. I truly had incredible luck. Not only did I meet President David, but I also escaped President Powell's torment, to die and be reborn again. How could that not be extraordinary fortune? Thank you for your guidance, Manager. I'll definitely keep working hard. After handing over my tasks and returning to the factory dormitory, I heard a group of young women calling out to me, Sarah, Sarah, you're just in time. Did you know Megan got married? Megan, no, I didn't. When did she get married? Look. She just posted on her social media today. Grateful to have met you. Happiness fills the rest of my life. In the photo, Megan leans her head on Jim's shoulder, holding up their marriage certificate with a sweet smile, but I know this will be the last time I see her smiling so happily. Once the fish is hooked, who would still bother with the bait? Are you going to Megan's wedding? Go, of course I'll go. I want to witness her happiness. And of course, to witness my own happiness as well. Celebrating that I'll never have to fall into the abyss in this lifetime, celebrating that my bitter days are finally over in this life. Megan and Jim's wedding was set in a rural farmyard. There was no dream wedding like the one her husband had prepared for her in her past life, no dazzling pigeon-egg diamond ring, no flowers, no balloons, only a group of older women who surrounded her as soon as she stepped out of the car, hitting her with tree branches. What are you doing? What are you doing? How dare you hit me? Megan pushed away the auntie closest to her, her face twisted with anger, showing no trace of the happiness a newlywed should have. Megan, how could you push auntie? That's so inconsiderate. Jim stood outside the crowd, grinning as he watched the group surround and hit Megan, only changing his expression and stepping forward when she fought back. Jim, can't you see, they're hitting me. I'm supposed to be happy today. It's my wedding day. Why should I have to take their beatings? It's everyone's blessings, helping to dispel your bad luck. It's a good thing. What a load of crap. If it's such a good thing, why does it only hit women and not men? Don't men need to get rid of bad luck too? It's clearly intimidation tactics for the new bride, yet they make it sound so righteous. I don't care, make them apologize to me, otherwise, I won't go through with this marriage. I'm going back to my parents' house today. When has Megan ever suffered such humiliation? In her past life, she was beautiful, married well, and was protected and pampered by her husband her entire life, let alone watching someone hit her in person. Even if she stumbled over a table leg, he would immediately replace the table. How could he ever let her suffer such grievances? Yet in this lifetime, she insisted on marrying Jim, a man who was nothing but a tyrant to his wife and children, utterly worthless outside the home. Megan, don't push your luck. How much money did our family spend on your wedding just because you wanted one? Now we're just following our customs to bless you. How can you say such things? Jim, with reddened eyes, pointed at Megan and spoke, seeing Jim's sudden change of attitude on their wedding day. Megan, in a fit of anger, climbed back into the wedding car. The women who had been hitting others, seeing this situation, began to look at each other and shift blame among themselves. It wasn't until Jim's father came over, pulled Jim aside, and said a few words that Jim reluctantly followed and got into the wedding car. I have no idea what the two of them were talking about in the car. It took forever, and I was starving by the time they finally got out, looking all awkward. The wedding proceeded as usual, but neither the bride nor the groom seemed very happy. Well, if they're both unhappy, then I couldn't be happier. One is the murderer who killed me in my past life, one is the scum who tormented me in my past life, a perfect match of trash. spending 200 is worth it. What a rare sight this is. I would have been happier if it weren't for my aunt's phone call again. Sarah, how could you be so careless? A perfectly good man was snatched away right under your nose. I told you to meet him sooner, to meet him sooner. And now look, he's married, that connection belongs to someone else now. Honestly, you're good at nothing, not even keeping what's practically handed to you. No wonder you can't get married. Alright, let's all wish the newlyweds happiness. The MC's words drifted through the phone and into my aunt's ears, cutting off her endless nagging. Who's talking? What are you doing? My aunt's loud voice came through again. I'm at a wedding, you know this person too. It's Jim, then, without waiting to hear what else my aunt wanted to say. I hung up and turned off my phone. If it weren't for this relative who acted as a catspaw for evil, I wouldn't have been deceived into marriage in my previous life. I still didn't think it through. I should have changed my phone number earlier, I thought while sipping orange juice. Soon it was time for the bride and groom's toast. Megan approached our table holding a glass of red wine, her eyes fixed on me, filled with the pride of a victor. What's the rush? It's not like I'm going to fight you for trash. Congratulations, congratulations, wishing you a happy union for 100 years, early arrival of precious children, 2 babies in 3 years, and 3 in 5, with genuine sincerity. I raised a smile and took the lead by downing my orange juice. Megan looked at my expression, froze for a moment, then followed suit by finishing her glass of red wine. Beside me, Jim was grinning from ear to ear, continuously thanking us for our blessings. If having descendants filling the hall is considered a blessing, then having unfilial descendants filling the hall must be a curse. I wonder if those 2 rebellious children of mine from my past life would be reborn into the Powell family again. Even after moving to the headquarters, I didn't slack off for a moment, studying English and obtaining various certifications, too busy to even think about Megan and my family. After living a second life, I finally realized clearly that I'm not my parents' daughter at all. Rather, I'm just the wife they're raising for some husband I don't even know. They couldn't care less whether I achieve anything or make something of myself, just follow the secular doctrines to discipline me. You must be diligent and quick-eyed with chores, otherwise your in-laws won't like you. You must study hard so you can marry into a good family and fetch a high price. Be obedient, gentle, compliant, and sensible. The only thing they wouldn't tell me was to be happy, so in my previous life, after marrying Jim and being repeatedly turned away when seeking help, I became increasingly numb. I didn't understand what selfhood meant. I'm a woman, I shouldn't have a self. I never had any say in Powell's household. The children grew up witnessing how my in-laws treated me, and they learned to disrespect me in the same way. I had no right to discipline them. Yet they blamed all the children's bad habits on me. Everything was my fault. I wanted to defend myself, but I didn't even know how to begin. I live in bewilderment, dutifully playing the role of a good woman. I am a good daughter, a good daughter-in-law, a good wife, a good mother, yet, I am not a good version of myself. At this moment, I even feel grateful to Megan, thankful that she dragged me into the water when she was breaking down and losing control. Successfully killing me also killed that heartless Sarah, with memories from 2 lifetimes. I've never felt so light-hearted before. I've come to realize that it's not only men, or women cherished by men, who can live well. As long as I can seize opportunities to earn money and work, I am complete on my own. After gaining capability, I can shed my secondary identity, simply as a human being, obtaining human rights. How fortunate I am. After dying once, I've finally found myself. When I broke free from all the invisible bonds that once constrained me, I didn't even hold grudges against those who treated me poorly. Megan, Jim, auntie, mother-in-law, or whoever else, doesn't matter anymore. Not forgiveness, just no longer important. At the age of 32, I was transferred to an overseas position at the headquarters, responsible for overseas operations projects. In my team was also Leo, Megan's husband from her previous life, that good man who took such tender care of his wife. The tempering of these years has made me increasingly confident and composed. It made my 5-point appearance bloom with 7-point radiance. At a gathering after a project concluded, fueled by alcohol, Leo confessed his feelings to me in front of many colleagues. Sarah, would you be my girlfriend? I promise, I'll treat you incredibly well, wholeheartedly, without ever changing. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, sprayed with cologne that exuded the scent of a mature man. His deep eyes brimming with tenderness, the red rose in his hand was particularly dazzling. If it were me from my past life, I would surely blush and my heart would race, agreeing to him without hesitation. What could be wrong with a man so outstanding in looks, ability, and personality taking a liking to me? but I'm not that Sarah, the Sarah who's all about being a devoted wife and mother. Thank you for your affection. I sincerely hope you'll meet someone who truly resonates with your soul. But I'm sorry, that person won't be me. Come on, switching partners in dating shows is so tacky. Sarah, could you please not reject me? Let me try standing by your side. Leo's eyes burned intensely, his voice even carrying a hint of choked emotion. The surrounding colleagues joined in, egging him on. Come on, Sarah, Leo is really a great guy. You'd be missing out if you didn't give him a chance. We've all seen it. Leo is genuinely outstanding. He's a returnee from abroad, an only child. Earns a high salary, and is handsome too. If I weren't a man, I'd definitely pursue him. For a moment, there were all sorts of comments around. They were nothing more than urging me to accept his confession. My wishes were not within their consideration. Sarah, Leo wanted to say something more, but I raised my hand to stop him. Leo, don't you remember, the company has a rule against office romances. If we violate it, one of us will have to leave. I hoped my words would calm him down. But his response had the opposite effect on me. I know, Sarah, it's okay. As long as we're together, I can take care of you. Even if you lose your job, I'll work hard to support us. He swore his devotion to me, completely oblivious to my trembling hands. Turns out he wasn't unaware of the company's no-dating policy. He simply took it for granted that I would abandon this hard-earned job for him, just to become his caged canary. What makes you think I'd give up my livelihood for you? Suddenly, I think I understand why Megan, who'd been reborn, chose to leave him in our previous life, despite how well he'd treated her. Apart from the reason of being child-free, there's also Leo's suffocating gentleness that disregards others' well-being. This gentleness is like boiling a frog in warm water. Once you're immersed, it leads to eternal suffocation. With Jim, it's a different path that ultimately leads to the same torment. But Sarah, you're not getting any younger. Am I not the most suitable partner for you? Leo persistently questioned me. At this moment, the ropes binding me became tangible on his body. Though it was he who admired my independence and freedom, he still sought to conquer me under his command. Was his love truly love? I smiled and handed him a glass of ice water, splashing it onto his face. Sir, you're drunk. It's time to sober up. That farce didn't escalate to the headquarters, but my relationship with Leo grew distant. But what does it matter? Just another self-righteous man. Soon, as if to prove himself, Leo became close with another girl from the same company. That girl was charmed by his gentleness, left the company, and became his devoted partner. In the break room, Leo held his coffee and asked if I regretted it. Regretted the exquisite gifts he prepared for his girlfriend, the gourmet meals he treated her to, and the envy they garnered. If I hadn't been so willful back then, all of this should have been mine. It's a bit of a shame. Leo's cold smile was still on his face as I continued. It's a shame for that girl. She clearly had so much potential. Given time, she could have achieved everything you offered her on her own, but because of a momentary lapse in judgment, she retreated. She doesn't realize what she's lost by stepping back. Such a good girl, still too young. Following in Megan's footsteps, afterwards, Leo seemed to have gone mad, opposing me at every turn and performing poorly at work, severely dragging me down. The management at headquarters didn't believe it was Leo's fault, instead blaming me unconditionally, simply because he was a returnee with higher qualifications and had entered the industry earlier. Such low-level mistakes must have been solely my doing. During yet another team meeting where I was criticized, I publicly submitted my resignation. Others thought I had lost, but I knew I had done the right thing. Joining the headquarters was just one phase for me. I won't remain stagnant in this position forever. This current role can no longer nourish me, and decisively leaving it is the only correct answer. It's laughable how they're still gloating over pushing me out, unaware that I've risen to greater heights. I received an offer from a foreign company in the same industry just one day before I resigned. Over the years, I've never been satisfied with small progress. Like a sponge, I've continuously absorbed knowledge to strengthen my weaknesses. When my education wasn't enough, I studied for exams, I obtained various certifications, upgraded my college diploma to a bachelor's degree, and earned a master's degree abroad. When my appearance wasn't ideal, I experimented with one makeup look after another, carefully considering every outfit combination to better highlight my strengths, project more confidence, and appear more professional. My spoken language was poor, so I specifically signed up for one-on-one foreign language classes, correcting pronunciation one sound at a time. Nowadays, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I've been completely transformed. Was the process difficult? Of course it was. But I still remember how I got through my previous life. Jim's frequent scolding and beating when he was unhappy, the unreasonable harassment from my in-laws, the helpless anxiety of raising disobedient children despite giving birth with all my might, and the powerlessness of begging for survival with an open palm, a single hand can't clap. Why does my son hit only you? Isn't it because you don't serve him well and make him uncomfortable? You want anesthesia for childbirth pain. Who do you think you are? All women go through this. What if anesthesia harms the baby? A daughter married off is like water spilled. You can't keep running back to your parents' home whenever something happens. It's bad for your brother. What's the big deal about being pregnant? Does being pregnant mean you can just eat and laze around? When I was pregnant with Jim, I still carried water and worked the fields. Lazy good for nothing. What do you mean by marital rape? He's your husband. What's wrong with him sleeping with you? Why don't you complain about not being able to bear a son? Those words I thought I had long forgotten would echo in my ears every time I wanted to rest for a while. Those involuntary helplessnesses were like whips, lashing at me over and over again, pushing me forward relentlessly, endlessly. Compared to these trivial torments, what's the big deal about enduring the hardships of studying? Is that suffering? No, it's a blessing. Just as I had packed everything and was about to fly abroad, I saw the bloated Megan stopping me with her children in tow. How did you find me? Ever since that phone call from my aunt during Megan's wedding, I immediately changed my phone number. Not to mention I had already moved out of the factory dormitory years ago and lost contact with Megan. I went back to the factory dormitory, and they said you had gone to work at the headquarters. So I took the child and went to the headquarters to look for you, but they told me you had resigned. After asking around, only one female colleague who used to share rides with you told me you might be living here. Megan's hair was casually tied into a ponytail, with many stray strands falling around her neck. Wrinkles had crept up at the corners of her eyes, and her cheekbones bore numerous sunspots. Her once smooth skin had been wrinkled by the trivialities of life, and her slender waist, which could once be encircled with ease, had become plump after childbirth without any chance to recover. The sweet and lovely young beauty had finally been worn down into a different appearance, becoming Sarah from my past life. What can I do for you? While I was sizing up Megan, Megan was sizing me up too. Her gaze turned fervent as she grabbed both children and shoved them into my arms. Sarah, I don't want your life anymore. I don't want the children. Just give Leo back to me. Give Leo back to me. Those two children bore an uncanny resemblance to my own children from my previous life. Even the disdainful look they gave Megan, their biological mother, was identical to how my own son and daughter had looked at her in my past life. I don't understand what you're talking about. I dodged aside, and those two children were pushed to the ground by Megan. Their desperate wails instantly pierced my ears. Megan turned a deaf ear. Stop pretending. If you hadn't married Leo, how could you be living such a carefree life? You're just a factory girl. If you hadn't pushed me aside and latched onto Leo, how could you possibly dress so glamorously and live in such a nice neighborhood? Megan grabbed my arm, insisting that I hand Leo over to her. She regretted her decision. Everything after marrying Jim wasn't what she had wanted, just like me in my past life. She was being worn down day after day, losing herself in the grind of daily life. The life she longed for with both a son and daughter would require her to burn her flesh and blood to achieve. The price was too high, and she no longer wanted it. She naively believed that simply having Leo return to her would end her suffering, but these were two entirely different worlds. How could the outcome shift just because of her will? Megan, you're mistaken. Leo and I aren't together. Everything I have now has nothing to do with any man. It's impossible, impossible. How could you do this alone? I don't believe it. Give Leo back to me. This is your child. This is your life. Take it back. I pulled my hand away from Megan's painful grip as the nearby security guards dutifully stepped in, blocking her from lunging at me again. Please help me call the police and contact her family to pick her up. I have matters to attend to and must leave now. I didn't want any further ties with anyone from my past life. Leaving Megan in her frenzied state, I hailed a taxi and walked away. Before opening the door, I sighed as I watched Megan rolling on the ground, throwing a tantrum, completely unlike the elegant noblewoman she once was. From afar, I said to her, Megan, have you ever thought that you could live well without relying on anyone, not depending on your parents, not depending on men, not depending on your children, just living for yourself? Without waiting to hear what else her hesitant lips might say, I closed the taxi door. My advice wasn't just for Megan, it was also meant for Sarah back then. Her figure overlapped with mine from my past life, and for a moment, I couldn't tell them apart. Tears blurred my vision and flowed into my mouth. Once again, I tasted the flavor of tears, but this time they no longer carried bitterness. after hearing the first story above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My best friend Susan handed me a bowl of calming soup. I turned around and poured it into the community's ornamental pond, feeding 4,000 koi fish, because I had been reborn. In my previous life, Susan had bound herself to a maternal love transfer system. Every time I drank her concoction, all my love for my daughter would transfer to her son. I poured all my maternal affection into her son Andy, neglecting my own biological daughter Mia. I spent tens of thousands on early education classes for Andy, while leaving Mia to suffer through high fever. I transferred all my assets to Andy's name, yet Mia didn't even have a single new piece of clothing, until I caught her lying in bed with my husband Donald. It turned out Andy wasn't a test tube baby at all, but their illegitimate child. In the end, they drove me and my daughter out of the house. We died under a bridge, starving and freezing. Before death, as the system failed, I suddenly woke up to realize that my daughter was the one I loved most. But Susan just smiled and said, "Lucy, you love Andy so much that you didn't even care when your own daughter starved to death. How pathetic you are, given a second chance at life." Wasn't she fond of transferring maternal love? How dull it would be to transfer only mine, this time. The maternal love from the entire neighborhood will be her surprise. "Lucy, what are you daydreaming about? Drink it while it's hot." Susan's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I snapped back to reality, and there she was, holding that familiar bowl of pitch-black herbal medicine, smiling warmly at me. "You've just given birth to Mia, and your body is weak. This is a secret remedy I had someone find for you. It's excellent for calming the nerves and replenishing energy." She nudged my arm. "We're lifelong best friends. How could I ever harm you? In my past life, it was after drinking this bowl of soup. From then on, whenever I looked at my newborn daughter Mia, I felt nothing but irritation, yet he loved that so-called test tube son of hers, Andy, to the bone." I instinctively tightened my grip on Mia in my arms. Mia had just finished feeding and was sleeping soundly in my arms, her little face rosy. How wonderful, my daughter was still alive. What's wrong? Susan's smile faded slightly. "Did Mia disturb you? This child just loves to cry." I made up an excuse. "That's how kids are," Susan replied perfunctorily and pushed the soup bowl toward me again. "Drink it quickly, the medicine won't be as effective when it's cold." I looked at her, feeling a storm of emotions raging inside me. She and Donald. It was with this very same facade of caring for me that they pushed me into hell. My husband Donald was extremely busy with work, right after I gave birth. He used the excuse of an urgent project to leave town. Susan said she was a marriage-free advocate but particularly loved children, so she underwent IVF and gave birth to Andy. She claimed she bought the apartment across the hall just to be my neighbor, so our families could raise the kids together and enjoy the lively atmosphere. What a fine notion, raising the kids together. In reality, it was merely a cover for her affair with Donald, a way to manipulate me through the system. Turning me into her son's ATM and unpaid nanny, I took the soup bowl and placed it on the table. "Susan, didn't you always say you'd never marry or have kids? How did you suddenly decide to do IVF?" Susan's expression froze for a moment. "Oh, that was then. People change, you know," she urged. "Drink it quickly. I made it especially for you. Mia's asleep. I'll put her back in the crib first." I stood up holding my daughter. Turning my back to her, Susan didn't see the hatred in my eyes. When I turned around again, she was playing with her phone, her head lowered, a faint eerie smile on her face. I guessed she was messaging Donald. She drank it. "The system is activated. Honey, your money will soon be our son's." I picked up the empty bowl and walked over to her. "Thank you, Susan. The soup was really good." Susan looked up and smiled contentedly. "Of course it was." She stood up. "All right, you rest well. I'll take Andy back. Call me if you need anything." The door clicked shut. I immediately rushed into the kitchen, rinsing my mouth over and over until the metallic taste of blood filled it. I walked to the window and watched Susan carry Andy into the house across the street. The decoration style of that apartment was exactly the same as Donald's study. How foolish I was in my past life to believe this was just a coincidence. I took a deep breath and dialed Donald's number. The phone rang for a long time before it was finally answered. "Hey Lucy, what's up?" Donald's voice was hoarse from just waking up. "Honey, when are you coming back? I'm so tired taking care of Mia alone." I faked a sob. Soon. I'll come back as soon as the project is finished," he replied dismissively. "By the way," I changed the subject abruptly, "did you know Susan moved in across from us?" The other end of the phone suddenly fell silent. Susan, Donald's voice rose half an octave, filled with deliberately feigned surprise. How did she move in across from us? Wasn't she living downtown all along, listening to his clumsy acting? I sneered inwardly. Yes, I'm surprised too, she said, raising a child alone is too lonely, and moving here means we can look out for each other. I said softly, honey, Susan's house is decorated so beautifully. Donald cleared his throat twice. Ah, really, that's great. With you girls living close by, I feel more at ease. He hurriedly ended the call, saying he had a meeting to attend. I put down my phone. In my previous life, I was immersed in the surprise of Susan moving in and never doubted Donald. Looking back now, his excitement and surprise during those days were all an act for me. In the following days, I stayed indoors, focusing on taking care of Mia. Susan seemed to sense that something was off. Logically speaking, after drinking the calming soup, I should have shown extraordinary enthusiasm toward her son Andy, yet for 3 consecutive days, I didn't take the initiative to visit Andy even once. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Susan holding Andy in her arms. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Lucy, do me a favor. Susan looked anxious. My mom just called and said she fell. I need to rush back to my parents' place. Andy is asleep. Could you take care of him for the afternoon? She had used this excuse in my past life too. At that time, the mere thought of having a chance to be alone with Andy thrilled me beyond measure. I left the crying Mia in her cradle and spent the entire afternoon cuddling Andy. Susan, I frowned, taking half a step back to shield the nursery behind me. I can't. Mia just fell asleep. She's shy around strangers and will cry if she wakes up and doesn't see me. I really don't have the energy to look after another child. Susan's expression froze instantly. She looked at me incredulously. Lucy, what's wrong with you? What's our relationship? Just asking for a little help, and you're this unwilling. The Andy in her arms seemed to be woken by the noise, whimpering twice. Susan quickly patted his back to soothe him, but her eyes remained fixed on me, filled with a hint of scrutiny. It's not that I'm unwilling, I sighed and pointed to my dark circles. I haven't had a full night's sleep these past few days. I'm exhausted. Andy is so precious. What if I doze off and he gets hurt? My words were flawless, leaving Susan unable to find fault. She gritted her teeth and said, fine, then rest. I'll take him back with me. Watching her slam the door shut resentfully, I locked it from the inside. I knew she hadn't gone back to her parents' place. She must have gone to the apartment across the hall. She wasn't willing to accept defeat. Her system hadn't worked. Sure enough, by evening, Susan showed up again. This time, she was carrying an exquisite thermal lunchbox. Lucy, my mom is fine. It was just a false alarm. Her smile was much more genuine than in the afternoon. You look exhausted, so I specially made you bird's nest soup. Imported blood nest, great for replenishing energy. You must drink it. She shoved the insulated lunchbox into my hands without another word, scalding hot to the touch. I had someone buy this at a high price. Eat up quickly, then get a good night's sleep so you'll have the energy to take care of Mia tomorrow. I looked at her, gratefully. Susan, you're so good to me. Of course, we're best friends, after all. She patted my hand, but her gaze drifted toward the insulated lunchbox in my grasp. Eat it while it's hot. I'll watch you. Seems like she increased the dosage. I smiled and opened the lunchbox in front of her. A thick, sweetly metallic scent rushed out. I picked up the spoon, scooped a bite, and was just about to bring it to my mouth. Wow! In the nursery, Mia suddenly burst into tears, as if granted amnesty. I immediately put down the spoon. Oh no, Mia's awake. I need to go feed her. Carrying the insulated container, I rushed into the bedroom and locked the door behind me. Susan was left waiting in the living room, her face turning pale and then flushed with anger. I poured that bowl of bird's nest soup down the toilet, listening to Mia's cries as I picked her up with a heart full of pain. Don't be scared, baby, mommy's here. I lingered in the bedroom for nearly half an hour, guessing that Susan had already left, before finally carrying Mia out. The living room was indeed empty, but she didn't take the insulated lunchbox. Early the next morning, Susan rang the doorbell again. She was carrying a bag of imported nutritional powder labeled with foreign text. Lucy, did you eat the bird's nest yesterday? How did it feel? She asked while changing her shoes. I did. It was really good. I slept much more soundly at night, I replied with a smile. Really? Susan gave me a skeptical glance. Why do you still look so pale? She placed the nutritional powder on the table. This is postpartum supplement I specially bought for you. Take it with the bird's nest for double the effect. Don't hesitate to use it. Money can be earned back. but health comes first. I was just about to speak, she suddenly changed the subject, looking at my empty living room. Where's Andy's play mat? Didn't I bring it over last time? Why haven't you used it for Mia? My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, I loved Andy to the point of obsession, filling the house with his belongings. Susan gave me a casual glance. Lucy, have you been too tired lately? I feel like you don't seem to like Andy as much anymore. I sneered inwardly. The probing had finally come. I picked up Mia, kissed her forehead, and looked at Susan with complete composure. Susan, I've just come to realize that Mia is my daughter, no matter how wonderful someone else's child might be. What does that have to do with me? Susan's expression changed completely. She stared at me intently. What do you mean? Nothing much. I blinked innocently and pointed at the nutritional powder on the table. But you, Susan. You're a committed single. How do you know so much about childcare and postpartum recovery? I feigned surprise and covered my mouth. Look at all these things you brought me. Bird's nest, nutritional powder. Honestly, you're more professional than me, the actual mom. A flicker of panic flashed in Susan's eyes. I was just concerned about you. She forced herself to appear calm. I looked it up online. Just looked it up? Oh, I smiled faintly. You must have done quite thorough research. Susan's face instantly turned crimson. I obviously looked it up online. For you, I've researched so much information. She raised her voice, trying to cover up her panic. Lucy, you've changed. You never used to talk to me like this, so sarcastic. I lowered my head, hugged Mia tightly, and said in a low voice, I'm sorry, Susan, I might really be suffering from postpartum depression. My mind has been a mess lately. I just want to stay with Mia and don't feel like seeing anyone. I used this excuse as a shield. Susan eyed me suspiciously for a long time, but seeing how exhausted I looked and that I didn't seem to be faking it, her expression finally softened. All right, I'll just say you're too tired. She pushed the nutritional powder toward me. I'll leave this here. Remember to take it on time. I'll head back now and let you rest. She left in a hurry. I knew she must have gone to call Donald to discuss countermeasures. The system didn't take effect as scheduled, and those two despicable lovers must be even more anxious than I was. Sure enough, Donald returned, covered in dust. The next evening, he came in, first gave me a symbolic hug, then went to check on Mia. Honey, you've worked hard. The project just wrapped up, and I rushed back immediately. He rubbed his temples with a tired expression. I poured him a glass of water expressionlessly. Glad you're back. Just then, the doorbell rang. Donald walked over to open the door. Standing at the door was Susan, holding a bowl of soup. Lucy, I made some. Her words trailed off abruptly upon seeing Donald, her face displaying just the right amount of surprise. Oh my, Donald, you're back from your business trip. Donald's acting skills surpassed hers as he exaggeratedly opened his mouth wide. Susan, what are you doing here? He suddenly turned to look at me. Honey. Is this what you meant by Susan moving in across the street? Oh my God, this is such a coincidence. How wonderful. He enthusiastically took the soup from Susan's hands. Come on in and sit down. Susan, you've been such a great help. It's all thanks to you taking care of Lucy while I was away. Susan smiled shyly. It's the least I could do. You know how close Lucy and I are. The two of them performed their joyful reunion act in front of me. Their familiar eye contact stabbing my heart like knives. Yeah, I said flatly, what a coincidence. You two should sit down and catch up. I'll go check on Mia. I walked into the bedroom, leaving the two in the living room exchanging awkward glances. That night, while Donald was taking a shower, his phone on the nightstand lit up. I didn't move. In my past life, it was because I trusted him too much and never checked his phone that I gave them an opportunity. I waited until the sound of water in the bathroom stopped, and Donald walked out, drying his hair. Honey, Susan said you've been in a really bad state lately. Are you depressed? He asked tentatively as he sat down beside me. She said you've been ignoring her and don't seem to like Andy much anymore. I lowered my eyes. I only like Mia. Donald frowned. Lucy, how can you say that? Andy is such a lovely child. And Susan struggles to raise him alone. Didn't you used to like him too? That was before. I pulled up the covers. I'm tired and want to sleep. Donald's face darkened, and without another word, he lay down on the other side. At 3 a.m, certain he was sound asleep, I quietly picked up his phone. Face unlock failed. I let out a light chuckle. Had he changed the password? No, he didn't change it. In my previous life, before I died, he unlocked it right in front of me. What he was guarding against was never me, but Susan. I picked up his finger and tried the fingerprint lock. It opened. Holding my breath, I opened WeChat, pinned without Susan. I opened the search bar, typed Susan, and found no results. I smirked coldly and entered Susan again. Still nothing. They were being cautious. I exited the search and started scrolling through his contact list. A contact labeled Baby caught my eye. I tapped on it. The profile picture was gray. But when I opened the first post was a photo of Susan holding Andy from behind, captioned, "My two treasures." I clicked to view the chat history. The most recent one was posted by Donald half an hour ago. "She really seems to have postpartum depression. She's been ignoring me, Susan. The system must be malfunctioning. She didn't take her nutritional powder again today. She doesn't love Andy at all, Donald. When will your assets finally be transferred to our son's name, Donald? What's the rush? Didn't I already buy the house under your name, Susan? That little money is nothing. The shares Lucy holds and the trust fund her parents left are the real prizes. We have to make her willingly give them to Andy. Donald, stop rushing me. I'll think of another way. If nothing works, I'll force-feed her." I clenched my teeth tightly and used my backup phone to photograph every single page of these chat records. Just then, my phone buzzed loudly with a ding. It was a message from the residential community group chat. I clicked to take a look. It was Susan. "Susan, room 1202, hello everyone, I'm Susan, your new neighbor. I'm a single mom, and my son's name is Andy. My best friend at Lucy, room 1201, lives across from me, and I moved here to keep her company. Susan, room 1202, sigh. But at Lucy, room 1201, just had a baby recently and seems emotionally unstable, possibly suffering from postpartum depression. Susan, room 1202. She hasn't been paying much attention to me lately, not even glancing at my son Andy. I'm really worried about her." She tagged me in the group chat. The neighbors were immediately drawn to the words, "Postpartum depression." Neighbor A, at Lucy, room 1201, "You need to be careful. Postpartum depression can be very dangerous." Neighbor B, "Your best friend is really kind to care about you so much. Susan is trying to establish in front of the neighbors that I'm mentally unstable, paving the way for her future actions." Watching her hypocritical performance on the screen, my fingers flew across the keyboard. "Lucy, Unit 1201, thanks for your concern. I'm fine." At Susan, Unit 1202, "I'm just busy taking care of my own daughter." Lucy, room 1201, "After all, I've just become a mother, and my energy is limited. I only love my daughter Mia. As for other people's children, I simply don't have the time or the obligation to care for them. I hope everyone understands." The moment I sent this message, the group chat fell silent. The neighbors' attitudes shifted instantly. Neighbor A, room 1201 has a point. Right after giving birth, just taking care of your own child is already challenging enough. Neighbor B, at Susan, Unit 1202, "Aren't you being a bit too nosy? How others raise their children doesn't seem to be your concern, does it?" Neighbor C, "Exactly, forcing someone to love your son under the guise of concern. What kind of logic is that?" Susan was left embarrassed by the neighbor's accusations and had no choice but to apologize in the group chat, saying she was overly worried. I knew she and Donald were already getting desperate. Donald was spending more and more time at home, subtly and overtly urging me, "Lucy, you see how hard it is for Susan to take care of Andy alone. You should go help her more. Andy is such a lovely child. Wouldn't it be nice for Mia to have another playmate?" I pretended not to hear any of it, just holding Mia in my arms. Susan also stopped sending me those soups and nutritional powders. She knew I was already on guard, and even if she sent more, I wouldn't consume them. They had to devise a new method, one I couldn't refuse, to activate the system. Soon, the opportunity arrived. The neighborhood property management announced in the homeowners group chat that they would be hosting a parenting sharing session for new moms at the clubhouse over the weekend to liven up the atmosphere. The property management encouraged everyone. Moms are welcome to bring their babies and a homemade snack to share experiences together. As soon as the notice was posted, my doorbell rang. It was Susan. She swept away the gloom of the past few days and smiled warmly. "Lucy, are you taking Mia to the sharing session this weekend?" I shook my head, feigning exhaustion. "Mia is still too young. I don't want to go to crowded places. It's too tiring." "Oh, you must go." Susan dramatically grabbed my arm. "This is exactly a sign of postpartum depression. Staying cooped up at home is the problem. You absolutely need to get out, walk around, and chat with people." Without giving her a chance to refuse, she carried in a large bag from outside. "Look, I've got everything ready for you. Inside the bag were imported flour, butter, and a beautifully packaged jar of healthy powdered sugar specially made for baby food. Let's bake some cookies together to bring along. We'll use this sugar. It's all natural and safe even for babies. You can't possibly say no, can you? Her eyes sparkled as she looked at me, afraid I would refuse. I sneered inwardly. I wouldn't drink the herbal medicine or take the nutritional powder. So she turned her attention to this powdered sugar. Sure, I agreed readily. Susan froze, seemingly surprised by how straightforward I was. I smiled and said, but if we're going to do it, let's do it right. You gave me those nutritional powders before, and I've been saving them. This is the perfect time. Without waiting for her reaction, I walked into the storage room and brought out all the dozen or so dusty imported nutritional powder boxes she had given me before. Didn't you say these are great for boosting vitality? Let's add them all in and make vitality cookies, so all the neighbors can taste your kindness. Susan's face instantly turned pale. She wanted me to eat it, but she didn't expect all the moms in the neighborhood to eat it too. Lucy, she quickly stopped me. This powder is very expensive, and it might not taste great. Better not add it. Oh, don't be so polite among neighbors. I enthusiastically tore open a box. Your kindness will surely be appreciated by everyone. Susan watched helplessly as I dumped over a dozen boxes of nutritional powder, along with her newly delivered healthy sugar powder, all into the pile of flour. She wanted to stop me but couldn't find any reason to, her face turning beet red with frustration. Weekend, the parenting sharing session at the community clubhouse was packed to capacity. More than 30 new mothers gathered together. The cries of babies and the laughter of women blending into a lively cacophony. I held Mia and appeared together with Donald. Donald insisted on coming along, saying he was worried about my depressed state. I guess he came to personally confirm the system activation. Susan also came holding Andy, looking very nervous and constantly glancing around. The tea break sharing session begins. I brought out that large plate of heart-shaped vitality cookies. Come and try them, everyone. These were specially made by my best friend Susan from Unit 1202 using imported ingredients. Holding the plate high, I enthusiastically invited everyone to partake. This cookie contains over a dozen boxes of imported nutritional powder she gave me. It's especially nourishing. Everyone, please don't hold back. Susan's face instantly turned pale. Donald was also stunned, wanting to step forward and stop it. But upon hearing the words, imported, free, and highly nutritious, those mothers immediately crowded around. Wow, Susan from room 1202 is so generous. These cookies smell amazing. Thank you, Susan. In the blink of an eye, the entire tray of cookies was snatched up. Donald and Susan stood rooted to the spot, unable to stop them no matter how hard they tried. I held Mia in my arms, watching coldly from the sidelines. The cookies were all gone. The club, which had been bustling with noise just a second ago, suddenly fell silent. The mother's chatter abruptly ceased. A mother wiping her son's mouth froze mid-motion. Another mother complaining about sleep deprivation also fell silent. Their eyes began to grow distant, yet fervent. They all turned their heads slowly in unison, their gazes converging on one spot, Andy in Susan's arms. A mother named Wendy dropped the toy from her daughter's hand and murmured, "This child, Andy, he's so adorable." Another mother, Linda, abruptly pushed her stroller aside and strode straight toward Susan with her arms outstretched. "Baby, your name is Andy, right? Come here, let Andy hold you. Is he cold? Oh my God, who dressed the child so lightly? He's hungry, he must be hungry. My milk just came in." Susan watched in horror as dozens of mothers, abandoning their own biological children, each wore expressions of eerie, obsessive maternal love on their faces. What are you trying to do?" Susan held Andy tightly as she stepped back. "Don't touch my son." Donald panicked too, wanting to step forward and protect Susan. "Get lost." A mother shoved Donald away roughly. "Don't scare my child." Susan was backed into a corner, her screams drowned out by the mother's fervent affection. "Don't be scared, baby, Mommy's here. He's my son. All of you, get away." Susan completely broke down. "Baby, don't cry, Mommy's here. You hurt him. Give him to me, he's mine, my child." The club was thrown into complete chaos. More than 30 mothers seemed to lose their minds instantly, their eyes fixed solely on Andy, who was wailing in terror in Susan's arms. They pushed, scratched, and desperately tried to snatch the child from Susan's grasp. "You're all insane. Get away. This is my son." Cornered, Susan's expensive dress was crumpled from the tugging, her hair disheveled. She screamed in terror, clutching Andy tightly in her arms. Donald tried to form a human barrier. But as one man, he couldn't possibly hold back this group of women whose maternal instincts had been twisted by the system. Back off, calm down, he roared, but a burly mother slapped him hard across the face. How dare you yell at my son? I'll fight you. Donald staggered from the blow, completely stunned, and those biological children abandoned by their mothers. Some were knocked to the ground, wailing heartbreakingly. Others sat bewildered in their strollers, watching their mothers go wild for another child. Some crawled aside, grabbing crumbs from the floor and stuffing them into their mouths. Not a single mother glanced back at them. The system had completely overwritten their instincts. Holding Mia, I quietly retreated to a corner of the club. Mia seemed frightened, staying completely still in my arms, her big eyes wide open as she stared. I gently patted her back and covered her ears with my hands. Don't be scared, baby, mommy's here. These people, they're just sick. I glared coldly at Susan. Isn't she enjoying being adored by everyone? Doesn't she want me, and even the whole world, to love her son? Now, I've made it happen for her. Andy in her arms is crying so hard he's about to pass out. The crying didn't calm the mothers down. Instead, it was like lighting a powder keg. The child is crying so miserably. Do you even know how to be a mother, you heartless woman? Give him to me now. One mother even opened her mouth and bit Susan's arm hard as she tried to push her away. Susan screamed in pain and loosened her grip. Linda beside her reacted swiftly, immediately trying to snatch Andy away. Donald, save me. Susan's voice was completely distorted with panic. Donald's eyes turned red with urgency as he forcefully shoved aside the two women in front of him and grabbed Susan's hand. Run. Susan didn't have time to think about the pain. She mustered all her strength to push Linda aside and fled through the club's entrance with Donald, both looking utterly disheveled. Don't let them escape. Give me back my child. The mothers frantically chased after them. The club was left in complete disarray, with only the cries of their own children remaining. I took out my phone, glanced at the video I had just recorded, and pressed save with satisfaction. I walked over to the group of children who were still bewildered and crying uncontrollably. Their mother had already chased Susan and Andy far away. I sighed lightly and dialed the property security's phone number. Hello, security office. There are over 30 children unattended in the clubhouse, and their mothers seem to have gone missing. After hanging up, I held Mia and walked out of the clubhouse. Susan, Donald, this is just the beginning. Don't you love playing with systems? Susan and Donald scrambled out of the club in panic. Susan clung tightly to Andy. Don't run, put down my child. One mother, unable to catch up, grabbed a decorative stone from the lawn in desperation and hurled it fiercely at Donald's back. Donald staggered, groaning in pain, but he didn't dare stop, pulling Susan along as they ran even faster. All the pedestrians in the neighborhood were stunned. They only saw a man and a woman holding a child sprinting frantically ahead. Behind them chased 20 or 30 disheveled women with frenzied expressions, screaming as they ran, a scene straight out of a zombie apocalypse. Hurry, get inside. Donald swiped open the access control for room 1202, and Susan was the first to dart in. Bang, the door slammed shut behind them, and almost simultaneously, countless hands pounded against it. Open the door, give Andy back to me. You wicked woman, don't be afraid, baby, mommy's here. The door was pounded with loud thuds, and the doorbell was pressed into one continuous, shrill, terrifying sound. Susan leaned against the door panel, collapsing to the floor, gasping heavily for breath. The Andy in her arms was terrified, crying uncontrollably until his face turned purple from lack of air. What the hell is going on? Donald leaned against the wall by the entrance, his back burning with pain. He grabbed Susan by the collar, his eyes bloodshot as he growled in a low voice. What exactly did you give them to eat? Those women have gone crazy. How would I know? Susan was frightened by him and shakily pushed him away. It was just that powdered sugar you gave me. You said if Lucy ate it, she would love Andy. I only told you to give it to Lucy, who told you to bake it into cookies for everyone to eat. Donald flew into a rage. He had no idea about the existence of the system. He only thought Susan had somehow obtained some kind of mind-altering drug. Susan couldn't defend herself. She couldn't possibly tell Donald that she was bound to a system, and now the system was overloaded by those vitality cookies, completely out of control. You useless fool who ruins everything. Donald angrily kicked the shoe cabinet. The banging on the door outside continued. Andy, mommy's outside. Open the door, you shameless couple. Hand over the child. Holding Mia. I stood behind the peephole of apartment 1201. Mia had already fallen asleep, so I put noise-canceling earmuffs on her. I leisurely brewed myself a cup of black tea, enjoying the spectacle. Soon, security guards and neighbors who had heard the commotion crowded the hallway on the 12th floor. My God, what's going on here? Susan from 1202, she's trapped inside. The security guard tried to pull away the frantic women. Residents, please calm down, you're causing a disturbance. Get away, don't touch me. A mother, eyes red, shoved the guard aside. I have every right to see my son. That's right, Andy is my son, he's my son. The mothers began arguing and physically fighting on the spot over who was Andy's real mother. The security guards were overwhelmed and completely unable to control the situation. The commotion lasted from afternoon until evening. The mothers seemed tireless. When they saw that smashing the door was useless, they began to change tactics. They started bringing things from home and piling them up at the entrance of Unit 1202, expensive imported formula, boxes upon boxes of diapers, brand new strollers, mountains of toys. They completely blocked Susan's doorway. They even set up shifts. Susan and Donald were effectively held hostage by them. I set down the teacup and curled my lips into a smile. Susan, didn't you detest children and never wanted to be tied down by them? Now, you're imprisoned by over 30 heavy doses of maternal love. The door of room 1202 has become the landmark of the entire building. I can hear the sounds of arguments coming from inside every day. Donald, think of something. Are we just going to be locked up forever? Shut up, this is all your fault, you idiot. Andy pooped again. We're almost out of diapers. Go get some from the door. Me, the moment I open that door, those lunatics will tear me apart. You go. I don't dare. Cries, curses, and the wailing of infants filled the air without cease. I reckon they're nearing their breaking point. Late that night, I had just finished feeding Mia and was about to sleep. My phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. I picked up the phone. Lucy, help me. It was Donald. His voice was barely above a whisper. Open the door, quick, let me in. I can't take it anymore. That crazy woman Susan is driving me insane. I walked over to the peephole to look outside. Several mothers on night watch in the hallway were dozing against the wall. Donald, he had actually managed to escape from room 1202. He didn't take the elevator but climbed up through the fire escape. Now he was pressed against the wall, hiding in the blind spot beside the door of Unit 1201. Lucy, I'm begging you, for the sake of our marriage. I opened the door, just a crack, keeping it secured with the safety chain. Donald's face instantly appeared in the gap. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair greasy and plastered to his forehead. Let me in. He pushed urgently against the door. The security chain clanked taut. Donald, I said calmly, staring at him, don't you find it ridiculous to come begging now? What the hell do you want? Donald finally dropped his facade when I refused to open the door, growling in a suppressed voice. Was it your doing with that woman outside? Lucy, when did you become so vicious? Me? Vicious? I chuckled lightly. Compared to you and Susan scheming against me, trying to turn me into an ATM for your illegitimate child, who's really the vicious one? Donald's pupils constricted sharply. You knew? Of course I knew. I took out my backup phone and opened those indecent chat records right in front of him. Honey, your money will soon belong to our son. If she refuses, just force her to drink. Donald's face turned as pale as paper under the cold glow of the phone screen. His lips trembled. Unable to speak. Apartment 1202 is decorated exactly like your study. I stared at him and asked word by word. That apartment, you used our marital assets to buy a love nest for you and Susan, didn't you? At the end of the hallway, those dozing mothers seemed startled awake by the commotion here. Someone stood up, rubbing their eyes and looking in this direction. Donald noticed too, sweating profusely in panic as he reached out to cover my mouth. Keep your voice down. Are you trying to get me killed? I abruptly stepped back and slammed the door shut. Donald was blocked by the anti-theft chain, grabbing at thin air. Lucy, open the door, open the damn door. He pounded on my door like a madman. Donald, you admitted it, I said coldly through the door. Admitted what? His curses abruptly ceased, because those night watch mothers had already spotted him. Look, it's that man. He escaped from room 1202. Where's Andy? Where has he hidden our Andy? The mothers instantly snapped awake, screaming as they lunged at Donald. Get away, don't touch me. Donald was knocked to the ground, beaten and kicked by them. Speak, where did you take Andy? Donald's screams echoed throughout the entire floor. I leaned against the door, expressionless, and dialed 110. Hello, police, I'd like to report a crime. There's a group fight happening here, by the way. I'd also like to file a report while I'm at it. I want to file for divorce and report my husband Donald for suspected embezzlement and illegal transfer of marital assets. Yes, I have all the evidence." The piercing sound of police sirens grew louder before abruptly stopping downstairs. Heavy footsteps and shouts could be heard. "Police, nobody move. What's going on here? Everyone get down with your hands on your heads." The mothers in the hallway were startled by the commotion and stopped beating Donald, seizing the opportunity. Donald scrambled behind the police officers, pointing at the group of women and then at my apartment door. He gasped and shouted, "Officers, they've all gone mad, and 1201, Lucy, she set me up." The police officers, baffled by the bizarre scene, exchanged confused glances. "Who called the police?" the lead officer asked loudly. The door of my house clicked open. I walked out calmly. Donald's eyes turned red when he saw me. "Lucy, you poisonous woman, officer." "I'm the one who called the police." Ignoring Donald's curses, I handed over my backup phone. "This is my husband, Donald." The phone contains chat records of him conspiring with Susan from room 1202 to illegally seize my assets. He also used our marital assets to purchase the apartment in room 1202 outright, registering it under Susan's name. This constitutes a legal transfer of marital property. As for these ladies, I glanced at the group of watchful mothers. They turned into this after eating the cookies Susan brought at the club. They'd been blocking the door of room 1202 for over 24 hours. The officers' expressions instantly turned grave. "Financial crimes, unlawful confinement, and possibly poisoning. Take him away." The two police officers immediately stepped forward and restrained Donald, who was still shouting curses. "Lucy, you'll die a horrible death. Let me go, Susan. Susan, save me." Donald's screams echoed through the hallway. Growing fainter and fainter, seeing the culprit taken away, the group of mothers turned their attention back to the door of room 1202. Their maternal love needed an outlet. Bang, bang, bang. They began pounding on the door with even more frantic force than before. "Susan, open the door. What have you done to our Andy? Hand over the child." At that moment, a heart-wrenching scream came from behind the door of room 1202. "Ah!" It was Susan's voice. "Andy, Andy, don't scare me." Susan's tearful voice drifted through the crack in the door. The door of room 1202 was suddenly yanked open. Susan rushed out. Her hair was greasy and tangled, her eyes sunken, and she carried a sour stench. In her arms, Andy's little face was flushed red, his lips purple, coughing weakly. He had a high fever. My baby is sick." A mother screamed and rushed forward to snatch him. "Get away, all of you." Susan pushed her away hysterically. At that moment, the elevator doors opened. More than a dozen men rushed out. They were the husbands of these frenzied mothers, unable to find their wives at the club and discovering their children left alone at home. Each of them was frantic with worry and burning with anger. "Honey, are you insane? Don't you know our child has a high fever? What the hell are you doing here? Have you abandoned our home? Officer, what on earth is going on?" My wife and the others. They seemed to not recognize me at all. The men's angry questions, the police officers' shouts, and the women's delirious murmurs of, "I want Andy," all blended together chaotically. The scene descended into utter chaos. Susan was pinned down by two policewomen. She saw me, then saw the group of furious men, realizing her complete downfall, suddenly summoning all her strength. She screamed at me, "It's her, it's Lucy, she's the one who ruined me, she ruined everyone." All eyes instantly focused on me. I calmly opened the door. Holding Mia in my arms, I stepped out and stood within the protective circle formed by the police. I looked at those husbands who were unaware of the truth. "Everyone, do you want to know why your wives abandoned their own children and came here to snatch someone else's son?" I pointed at Susan, who was pinned to the ground. "Because of her. At yesterday's parenting sharing session, she provided love cookies, and those cookies were laced with something." One husband roared. "Laced with what?" "A drug that could make them lose their minds and see her son Andy as their own child." "Nonsense," Susan continued to argue. "I didn't, it's her. Lucy framed me." "I framed you," I sneered, raising my backup phone, which showed Donald's chat history with her. "Susan, this drug wasn't originally meant for them, was it?" I declared loudly in front of everyone. "This medicine was prepared for me, because you, Susan, and my captured husband Donald are lovers. Andy in your arms isn't some test tube baby at all. He's your illegitimate child." A collective gasp rose from the crowd. I continued, "You used my money to buy the apartment across the hall for your affair, but that wasn't enough. You resorted to these despicable tricks to manipulate me. hoping I'd fall for your illegitimate child and willingly transfer all the property my parents and I left behind to your precious son. Too bad your plan failed. I stared at her. You never expected I'd turn those ingredients into cookies and share them with everyone, and you certainly didn't foresee your own system backfiring. Susan's face drained of all color. As for those controlled mothers, when they heard words like bastard, scam, and lowlife, cracks began to appear in their mesmerized expressions, especially when Andy was taken away by the ambulance, vanishing completely from their sight. The taut string in their minds snapped. System overload, target lost, that forcibly transferred, displaced maternal love instantly transformed into overwhelming hatred, hatred born of deception, mockery, and the theft of her own child. The first to react was that Linda. The infatuation faded from her face, replaced by the terror and fury of sudden clarity. My son is still at home. I left him alone there yesterday. She whipped her head around and fixed Susan with a deathly stare. It's you, you vile bitch. She broke free from the police and lunged forward. What have you done to me? Give me back my child. 1, 2, 3. All the mothers controlled by the system regained their senses at this moment. They were acutely aware that they had been treated as fools. Acutely aware that their own flesh and blood had been abandoned by them for an entire day. The love they had for Andy was nothing short of fanatical. At this moment, their hatred for Susan was equally lethal. The police were caught off guard, their defenses shattered in an instant. They stopped grabbing and started biting and beating instead. Stop, all of you stop, assaulting an officer. The police officer's shouts, Susan's screams, and the women's cries echoed throughout the entire building. Susan was pinned firmly to the ground by them and soon fell silent. I coldly watched, holding Mia, and retreated back inside the door. I never saw Donald again. He was prosecuted for illegally transferring marital property and embezzlement. The chat records were irrefutable evidence, leaving him no room for defense. The amount was enormous, and he was sentenced to 10 years. We quickly went through the divorce, and he left with nothing. All properties under his name, including the apartment at 1202, were returned to me. Susan's fate was even worse. She was sued by the more than 30 families who had regained consciousness. The charges included intentional harm, unlawful detention, and endangering public safety by using unidentified drugs. In court, she couldn't explain the existence of the system and could only insist that she had accidentally mixed up the nutritional powder. However, her chat logs with Donald exposed her sinister intent to control me using drugs. Ultimately, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison for multiple charges combined. More importantly, she was ordered to pay exorbitant compensation for the emotional damages suffered by those 30-plus families. All her assets were frozen and auctioned off, turning her overnight into a debt-ridden prisoner. As for Andy, with Susan imprisoned and Donald incarcerated, he was sent to an orphanage. I heard that Andy suffered some after-effects from the high fever and shock that day. As for that maternal love transfer system, after triggering that unprecedented backlash, it completely collapsed due to energy overload. 5 years later, I took Mia, who was already attending kindergarten, to handle the property sale. I sold both apartments, 1201 and 1202, at the entrance of the real estate transaction center. I spotted a familiar figure. It was Susan. She was out of prison, dressed in faded old clothes with dry, yellowish hair. She was arguing with an agent. I beg you, I must rent a cheap place. I still have to pick up my son. She looked 20 years older than she had 5 years ago, all the shrewd calculation gone from her eyes, replaced only by exhaustion and numbness from life's relentless grind. She saw me. I was holding Mia's hand, dressed in her pretty little dress. As she curiously stared at her, Susan's body trembled violently. Hatred, jealousy, resentment, countless emotions flickered across her face. She wanted to rush forward, but the agent impatiently shook her off. Your son, the agent sneered, who doesn't know you, Susan, just got out of jail, can't even support yourself, and now you want to take a child out of the welfare home. What kind of dream are you living in? Susan's face instantly turned deathly pale. She grabbed the agent's arm, her voice trembling. No, I love him, I'm his mother, I really love him. But she had nothing left, not even the right to see him once. Mom, Mia tugged at my hand. Why is that auntie crying? I crouched down, patted my daughter's head, and blocked her view, because she lost the most important thing she had. Without another glance at Susan, I held Mia and turned to walk toward the car parked by the roadside. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.